this inner city of Detroit. My mom was a single parent that had 3 kids. I'm the baby. She kind of moved a whole lot. So many different places in Detroit that I have lived. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, epic drug culture. It was pretty much just a free-for-all environment in terms of you get it how you live, basically. Most of my peers didn't know their fathers either, so a bunch of young guys mimicking movies and what have you, so that's the type of environment I was raised in. At my earliest understanding, and when I was able to even grasp the concept of God, of course, Christianity was the medium that, I was even have a consciousness of who God is. At a very early age, it was just impossible for me to digest, so to speak, the image of what Christianity appeared to me at that time was, again, to me, was white supremacy, basically. Jesus is white, so I rejected it. How can I read the Bible and God love me, and this image that I see, I don't even reflect the image when I look in the mirror. So I was completely detached from that whole ideology, just based upon that, Christianity as a block, as a religion. One would be insane not to read of the teachings of Jesus, even as contained in the Bible, and not feel the weightiness of what Jesus is talking about, the principles, basically. So, those principles are valid, but Christianity as a whole, I rejected religion at that point. And Islam came to me through the 80s version of Farrakhan. I don't know if you're familiar with Louis Farrakhan and the Wise, but their version of Islam, they was the Nation of Islam, and their understanding from the teachings that they espoused turned me off of even want to know what, Islam was about. It was chaotic to me, at the end of the day. So up until I was 15 and committed a murder and ended up going to prison for quite a long time. But religion never played a part in my life for a long time until I was able to, sit down and read. So, well, in my environment, I grew up around some predatory and cutthroat type of individuals. For instance, YBI, Young Boys Incorporated, was basically the exploitation of youth. Somebody figured out a loophole in the law where young guys wouldn't get persecuted in the manner that an adult would. If the young guy got caught with a gun, he got slapped on the wrist and sent home to his mother and wouldn't be no issue. So they created this organization called Young Boys Incorporated, where guys was young, they was young, and money was being made for a young 15-year-old, 13-year-old. $1,000 is a lot of money. So money is waved in your face. You're living in poverty if you staying in the projects, or you living in basically third world pockets. It's pockets in the city of Detroit, if you would. It's third world pockets where they eating Roman noodles every day and grape drink and bags of chips. That's a meal. These people don't leave they little strip of land. They don't go and venture out to the greater metro parts of Detroit, period. They ain't never know where Troy is. Never been to Bloomfield Hills. Don't never leave from, for instance, if they was on Mack and Gray, they'd never leave that environment. And it's easy to succumb to the pressures of what's going on in the environment. I was in the county jail, about to go face, went for murder. And at my young age, I was, like I said, my first exposure to Islam was through, in the late 80s, Public Enemy and the whole New York, East Coast rappers at that point were using the term Allah. And if you just listen to that music, that was my first exposure to it. But again, I didn't know anything about Islam. My only understanding was that what, again, Farrakhan said, white man was the devil and that type of thing. So to me, I just disregarded that, just living in the environment I live from. I just see. They tell me, Tupac said it greater. They say it's the white man that I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here. So being in my environment, seeing all the crime, you couldn't tell me that the white man was the devil and the black man was God. You couldn't. That was hogwash. This because of what I was seeing. So that was my first exposure to Islam. But anyway, I had went to, I'm in the county jail facing my life, basically. And I seen this guy who I knew, actually, who was actually one of the biggest drug dealers that I knew that lived around the corner from me. And he owned a bunch of cleaners and stuff like that. And he was in there. So he was facing some serious charges, his accusations from his wife of rape, and he had lost everything that he had, and he ended up getting found guilty and given life. But I seen him make a salat, which I know is what it is now. I didn't know what he was doing at the point, and the way he smiled and the way he just was doing things was crazy. And I seen him doing it, and I sat down and I was talking to him. And when he first started telling me about, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I thought he was talking about Elijah Muhammad. So, it didn't really catch for a while. And he gave me the Quran. He gave me the Quran one day, and then in my cell, I started to read it, and it was like, man, it's deep. It was deep. It was moving. It was something that, kept telling me to think. It kept telling me to use my judgment. For instance, reading how many favors of your Lord will you deny? The Surah 55. Just reading that, it's like, wow, it just talked to me in a way that I hadn't been challenged that way, from a mental perspective. And so 1994 was my first exposure to Al-Islam and its beauty. Well, loving to read, I do have a love of reading, and having had this understanding somewhat of man, from an anthropology perspective, understanding us as men coming into the world and one man, and historically how Islam has come on the scene. It was awesome in the sense that once you read the Bible, it left me wanting. I could clearly see the difference between Isa alayhi salam versus the ideologies of Paul. It's so easy to see, and so it did leave you thirsting for something to come. And then you read and understand Islam a little more. You see that Jesus was even making reference of that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will come and lead us into all truth, lead us to the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, this day he hath perfected the deen. Come to that point where Islam gives you hadiths, it gives you dua, it gives you a complete understanding of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and what being grateful is when you drink water and sit down, or you go to sleep, take a nap, you get married, even have sex with your wife, or you got du'as, you got all the ways, you got all the tools and means to give praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a continuous, live your life with a continuity of praising, not a sporadic praise, or my car broke down, I got to give a praise to Allah, or I wanted this job, or and then we give a praise. Islam teaches you to have this continuity of praise. It teaches you to morally check yourself. You know what I mean? It teaches you to constantly reflect on right. You do start things with the right hand. It constantly, again, reinforces the right way of thinking, the right way of interacting with people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said he sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the best akhlaq, the character. We can perfect our characters. We can do that. We can take ourselves from one level of character to the next level of character. And Islam helps you to do that. It helps you to subdue your desires in a way, in such a way, again, that's rewarding to not only you, but your environment, your community, and, most importantly, you pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Islam, once I had learned it in its totality, and I'm still learning, it's still deeper than I could ever imagine. But that was what I was able to, that was what ignited me, and it still ignites me today, to read. It's some things I still have never read. I can't read Arabic that well enough to grab Arabic text. So, I have to wait till people translate different works. But Islam is so vast. It satisfies the mental capacity that we have. Well, I seen this gentleman who I knew, and I knew how, again, from the street, I knew what type of person that he was. And when I ran into him here, like I said, he had been caught up in a situation with his ex-wife, which he professed his innocence. But he ended up, again, getting locked up for life. And he may have done maybe 6-7 years behind bars before he got vindicated that, he didn't do what he said, and he was ended up being released. But the grace of the way he carried himself and his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, I think was the biggest transformative thing for me, because the guy I know I'd have been pissed off if I had been placed in that position that he was in, and he didn't do it, and it was just a matter of somebody emotionally being hurt and getting back at him in a way that they can get back at him. So, I listened to him, and again, I read it was a Yusuf Ali edition Quran, the older version, so it had a lot of commentary. The story, I had never heard of who Prophet Muhammad, prior to then, never, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, never understood, never, nobody had ever talked to me about that. So, once I did learn as much as I could from the Quran, because you couldn't have books like that inside of the county jail. So I learned that from that. He ended up giving me my shahada from there. Once I got into prison, and the inside of prison, after I had been found guilty myself, I sought out the Muslim people that was in jail. So, I was embraced by brothers from, it's some brothers from different nationalities, brothers from Iraq that was in prison, different brothers from different nationalities, different people with different madhabs. I was even at one prison where they had a Islamic person that's what they call him, Islamic chaplain, but he was a brother who he wore the whole garb and wore a beard and turban. He wore to work every day. That's what he wore. I had the privilege of being his clerk. So, as I was his clerk, I was able to read, vast amounts of books that he would purchase, that he had in his own library. I was able to just sink my teeth into Islam to the point where it was beautiful. I lost myself in Sheikh Husri recitations of the Quran. I was able to have the Quran on tape. I know how to read it and write it. You know, I just immersed myself into the Sunnah, you know, from all the different hadiths, you know, Ibn Dawood, Tirmidhi, Sahih Muslim. You know, I just read everything that I could get. I read. I taught the different brothers their experiences, and it was this romantic thing. You know, if this is the way man's supposed to be, and understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands man in all his ways, what he think he know and what man think he don't know. Islam gave me a way to keep myself the way I'm supposed to think, the way I'm supposed to react, the way I'm supposed to respond. You know, so I have lived so much a part at 40. I have lived half my life being emotionally hijacked, you know, allowing somebody to say something to me or that's going to cause me to react a certain type of way. You know, Islam taught me to, no, you stay a Pacific type of way. You know, the outside can't erupt. So, you know, Islam again went to great levels. Imam Ghazali, you know, reading his works, it gives you again a sense of purification and what that means. You know what I mean? Not just an outward purification, but a purification of, again, I'm not gonna listen to gangster music or rap music or that type of thing. I'm not gonna pollute. It shows you how to reach a certain level of, and it gives you a step. You don't have to just believe in blind faith. Well, my evolution as a Muslim from 1994 to 2000, I'm gonna say maybe 2001, 1995 to 2001. Again, I never knew the difference in terms of Shia, Sunni. Never even crossed my mind. I must have didn't even catch on to what other people were saying, period. And most of the material that I read, I would have to say in a large, I was a Hanafi school of thought, just based upon most of the books that I read that I know now. Those scholars were Hanafi scholars. So my understanding and frame of reference to Islam was from a Hanafi perspective. I think one of the things he has said, one of his quotes that he's known for being quoted for, he said that when they asked him who should have been the caliph after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, whether it should have been Imam Ali alayhi salam or Abu Bakr, he said that Allah wasn't going to question him on their judgment about that. So he wasn't going to worry about it in his lifetime. That's what he reported to have said. So that was my stance for a long, long time. You know, when people started to talk about it and I ran into different guys, I even reached the level of Imam in the prison at one point. You know, I was the most learned person there. But when I would encounter guys who were quote unquote Shia or something like that, I just would dismiss them with that reasoning. You know, Allah ain't gonna question me on their judgment about that, so I'm not gonna worry about that. So, but it wasn't until again I had an opportunity. I met this brother and listening to him as I did, I listened to him and ended up getting Then I Was Guided books and I had that whole set of books, and we had a dialogue, and that dialogue, it did just, you know, it struck me as wild that, you know, when you read the seerahs of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it didn't go off into a bunch of detail about what happened after the Prophet died and the climate of the Muslim Ummah. It left it off. So that's what my search, I began from historical perspective. My search for just authenticity. Once I went to that, you know, it immediately, my conversion changed. I stopped not identifying myself as a Sunni. And I understand that both terms, again, are still political, you know, Sunni and Shia, from a perspective of what was going on then. You know, I realized some of the rituals and some of the things that's done, counteracted things that was done from a historical perspective. So, but I do acknowledge that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't leave us wondering. He completed deen like he said. So, I find comfort in reading hadith from the Ahlulbayt. I find comfort in understanding that bridge that was there as it was, but with all the previous prophets, that hikmah stayed in the family of the prophet. It's hard being a Muslim right now, just from things that's going on everywhere, and especially within our own communities. It's not embracing to come to certain masjids. It's wild. It's a beautiful reinforcement of the what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said at the time and things that was going to come. The same influence that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has had. The Ahlulbayt constantly reminds you of that you're gonna face toil, struggles. You're gonna not, things not gonna happen the way things are supposed to happen, But again, Allah is the greatest of planners. And it teaches you to stay steadfast, stay focused, don't deviate from the established way that we're supposed to act in terms of just the principle-oriented way that we're supposed to establish ourselves. And one of the most beautiful stories, I think that always touched me is Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Hussein alayhi salam. When the old man was doing his wudu wrong, and they seen it, and they saw it, and then they went to him, and they told him, which one of us is doing our wudu wrong? And they set out to do the wudu, and he acknowledged his own error, and it wasn't their error, but that was the most beautiful way for them to go and to say that to him and do that to him. And I think, again, the Ahlulbayt constantly remind us, on what it is to approach people, how do you treat people, That's caring for another person's emotional state. You could walk up to him, hey, you're doing it wrong, and yell and shout at them. And, people are fragile emotionally in certain types of ways. So it teaches, again, the Ahlulbayt, when you read those types of stories and you read their history of Karbala and the different battles that they fought, and how many of their family members were destroyed and killed. It teaches you again to don't react out of anger or emotion because of, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man, the Prophet Muhammad told them vividly. He told Aisha, not Aisha, astaghfirullah. He told Fatima alayhi salam, and she laughed and she smiled, and he told her, what's gonna happen. I gotta die. She started crying, and you're gonna be the first to reach me. She started laughing. So he kept saying that Hassan Hussein alayhi salam was gonna be the martyrs of paradise. So the Prophet, no doubt, told them what was coming. And to see the way that they handled themselves, they still trusted in Allah. They still showed us again, now, even to this day, persecution, people being persecuted all around the world. If they look to the Ahlulbayt, we know how to deal with that persecution in a way that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm just as human as the next person. In no way, shape, form, or fashion am I not prone to error or just downright foolishness. Just acting in a way that's pleasing to me. But for the most part, Islam gives me a parameter. Whereas I used to put prophets before people. you know what I mean, in terms of money. And now you could say Islam has given me the ability to place the prophets, you know, alayhi salam, before prophets, you know, monetary profits. So Islam teaches you, again, this as a shower. If I took one shower today, and then it's not going to prevent my body from smelling, you know, 24 hours from now. You know, Islam with, you know, how salat is, you know, how salat is done 5 times or more a day. Islam teaches you to constantly come back to the middle. You know, to constantly come back to La ilaha illallah. Constantly come back to that, you know, even Islam forces you to do that. Throughout your day, you got to come back when you're making prayer. So, again, if we understand as human beings, we habitual people, you know, again, if praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes a habit, our lives change. You know, not only does it change for our own selves, but it changes again collectively for the people that's around us, the environment. So, you know, Islam gives me hope that not to act like an uncivilized person, man. I could literally just be atheist and not care about, you know, I believe in the concept of a heaven and a hell just based upon, you know I done got away with some things that I done that was shielded because I sneak and I done it. And then you think you get away with it, you know, so you don't think you have to pay for those things. But, you know, Islam gave me the ability to take comfort in the fact that you're going to be held accountable for the things that you do in this life. You're going to be held accountable for those things. And it might appear to the world that, again, the bomb in Hiroshima was dropped on some people. The Native Americans were slaughtered. The people in Palestine being slaughtered. And some people be like, well, why would you believe in a God that allowed these things to happen? That's, you know, people ask you those things all the time. Well, again, Islam gives me an understanding that man has the capacity, man, to go. The pendulum swings both ways. You know, a man could be benevolent, and he exhibit the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all his actions and his ways. But the pendulum swings both ways. He can just be just as devious and diabolical as Shaitan and exhibit all his actions and his ways. You know, so Islam clearly points that out to me. You know, clearly gives you an option to be the party of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or be the party of Shaitan. It gives you that option. And to me, that's what Islam takes the covers off of the mystery that the world is. It's not really a mystery at the end of the day. You got to choose. You can be the party of truth, or you could be the party of jahiliyyah. You could be the party of dunya. You know, that's what most people want. Most people chasing the world, the lights, the casinos, the cars, the girls. Or they chasing Salat and Ramadan and Umrah and Hajj, you know. So at the end of the day, that's what our life consists. Every day we have an opportunity to do, and it's going to be that way until we pass form. You know, every day, every instant, every moment of your life, it's a way that's going to be beneficial to you that you can do it, or it's going to be a way that's not going to be beneficial to you that you can do it. And they both have his own ends and destructions. So, again, Islam points that out to you beautifully. And as a person, I needed to know that. I needed to know that I should strive to be nothing other than a person who just responded to life as life brought it. Wasn't no rhyme or reason to it, or no right or wrong. You know, at some point in my life, I never thought about a right or wrong. It doesn't matter. You got to deal with the consequences. I ain't got time to talk about right or wrong. Islam changed that for me, where it is a proper way to do something, a proper way not to do something. And it's clearly defined. It's not a mystery. It ain't nothing that you got to guess or second guess. It's purity. What to say? Truth is firmly established, and falsehood is firmly falsehood. So shenanigans is shenanigans. What's right is clearly what's right. And again, Islam beautifully reminds you of that. And you have no excuse as an individual to live your life under delusion, basically. To walk through the earth like you don't understand what's going on around you. So it's been a life changer for me. It has changed my life in a whole lot of ways. So alhamdulillah that I know what I know from about Islam, and I didn't live in that country. I didn't grow up with Muslim parents. So it's amazing. It's amazing that I was given what I have been blessed with by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with hidayat. Alhamdulillah. I wouldn't know. Now I got a little son, his name is Yusuf. So, awesome story, beautiful, like I'm saying. The difference, beautiful difference. When you read about the prophet Yusuf or Joseph in the Bible, that story is told. And the principles still apply. You can read it, you can find it in there from the biblical perspective. But when you read the Quranic perspective, it's a point where I think they say her name Zuleika. I don't know if that's the commentary of it, but when the lady had invited her friends over and they had cut their hands, and they all had fell in love with the beauty of Yusuf, alayhi salam. He prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said that, "Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prison is more to my liking than that to which they invite me to. Oh Allah, if you don't save me, I shall be inclined to," basically he said, to submit to my own youthful folly. So again, this is for the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, man's natural, his gravitation towards what they was inviting him to. But he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Oh Allah, please remove this from me, man. I'm subject to fall. I'm subject to be weak." And so things transpired to where he went to jail for as long as he went, and then he came out and he was favored. But this is what I'm saying. Islam gives you that, okay, I ain't got to feel dirty because I had this thought. The proper thing to do is to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being able to maintain the strength of being able to lower your gaze, or being able not to commit sins and those things. It don't lie in our own power. It does lie with the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so again, Islam helps you remember that. It constantly reminds you that everything happens with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah He grants forgiveness. If He gives you what you strive for. At the end of the day, if you strive for people strive for the things that they strive for, Allah so gracious, they give it to them. Some people strive to be the biggest drug dealers in the world. They become that. People strive to be whatever. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this ability to get what we strive for. And I think, again, Islam reminds you constantly and consistently of what the striving should be about. In terms of every man and woman, what our strive should be the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we still have duties to our families. We still have duties to the communities. We still got duties to the environment. But our first level of duty is to strive to be following the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sunnah to Allah. The Prophet Muhammad didn't say, like he said, he didn't say anything on his own. everything he said is Allah is told him. So the Prophet's way is Allah's way at the end of the day. And Islam, again, gives us a certainty that how we conduct our affairs, how we react, and how we do certain things, we can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our everyday walk of life. You know, it's not a part of it that's absent without the consciousness of doing things that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter what it is you're doing, from taking out the garbage to cleaning the tub, cleaning the bathroom, you know, how you treat the animals, your whole existence, your whole being. So the power of Islam is awesome.